Hello, hello, hello. This is Dr. Stephanie D. Barnes with C-Suite Women's Network. I help women and a few good men to be the CEOs of their lives so they can be better CEOs in their businesses. And I'm excited to conclude the series, Communicating Like a CEO, how to engage and not enrage your team. As I shared at the beginning of this series, communication reasons are one of the main drivers for people leaving organizations. Lack of direction from their leaders, overall poor communication, or under or uncommunicated change. People want to know what's going on. So in the course of this series, we've talked about literally how to talk to our people, how important it is to respond and not engage in communication by silence, how to be an active listener, and how to have good meetings to communicate your ideas that move people to action. And so we will conclude the series with talking about written communication. Because in this digital age, we do a lot of communication via writing. Sometimes that's emails, sometimes it's text messages or other instant messaging applications. So we have gotten a little lax in our written communications, and some of us use and overuse abbreviations and slang in a way that can sometimes impair our communications or can come across as unprofessional. So it's really important with respect to our written communications that we establish who we're talking to. Some people that we talk to are fine communicating via text. Others prefer an email. But regardless of which type of communication we're using, we have to recognize that technology can be a menace to communication. Because there's a lot that's lost in written communication, whether it's a handwritten letter, a typed letter, or a electronic communication via text or email. There's a lot that's lost. You lose your tone of voice. Sometimes you can inject a tone that's unintended. It's really important to remember that terse responses via instant messenger and text, which are designed in a way to have limited character text, right? But terse responses can sometimes come across as insensitive and sometimes downright rude. So even if you're responding right quick, make sure that you are thinking about how what you say can be interpreted, because they won't get the benefit of eye contact. They won't get the benefit of your tone of voice. They won't get the benefit of your smile. All they're going to get is that written communication. So, I'm an attorney by trade, so my writing tends to be very technical, very to the point, very assertive. So I have to make sure that when I'm sending non-lawyer communications, that I'm really thinking about how the other person is going to receive it so it doesn't come across too strongly. There are things that we want to keep in mind, like typing in all caps. That can be perceived as yelling at people, and it can add emphasis in places and in ways that you really don't intend to add emphasis. Also, it's kind of hard to read texts or emails written in all caps. So the thing that you want to remember about written communications is once they're sent, those words are out there forever. So be very mindful of what you send out there into this internet streets, right? You want to make sure that if you send something, you don't mind it being posted on or printed on the newspaper or posted on the front page of Google, right? You want to make sure that you don't send anything that you wouldn't feel comfortable saying via writing, via email, because it can be forwarded, it can be altered, and it kind of exists out there in the internet forever. So just be mindful. That doesn't mean that you never send anything confidential via email or that you never send anything controversial via email, but when you do so, it is intended and not just reactionary. So make sure that you do that. So anything that you put in writing, you want to make sure that if somebody comes back and reads it to you, if they print it out and circulate it, that you're cool with your name being associated with that. You know, and I would like to say that even though most of what we do in these days is done via email or text, a handwritten note still goes a long way. And, you know, if you are doing reward and recognition activities, you know, whether you're sending a thank you note to your team or sending a note of encouragement or something that is noting their accomplishments, a handwritten note goes a long way because it shows you care and it just adds that personal touch. Now, we'll say if your legibility is very bad, then perhaps you don't want to do that, or you just want to print it out, you know, block letters rather than cursive. But again, in the day when most things are done digitally via email or text, a handwritten note is a personalized touch that really can go a long way when expressing reward, recognition, and appreciation to your team. And the final thing I'll say is when you send something via in writing, proofread it, proofread it, proofread it. Make sure that the abbreviations you use cannot be misinterpreted or that they can be interpreted. Make sure that, you know, that you that your written communication is representative of your intelligence. Because we tend to do so many things verbally now and send things via text where we're being creative in how we write it, when we actually do write a letter, you know, there is still great appreciation for correct grammar and punctuation. So just make sure that your written communications reflect who you are as a CEO, they reflect your intelligence, and that they otherwise are great representatives of you. So this concludes the 5-part series, Communicating Like a CEO. It has been my pleasure to share these tips with you to help you to engage rather than enrage your team. Because as Chief Executive Officer, hopefully you've got this by now, you are the Chief Communication Officer. And it's important for you to be deliberate, be intentional, and be thoughtful in the communications that you have with your team so that you are able to be effective in executing your desired outcomes. And of course, if you need some help with polishing your communication skills, please go over to www.discovertheceoinyou.com, discovertheceoinyou.com, and let's schedule a strategy session to figure out how I can help you to be a better communicator in your team, in your business, and overall in your life. It has been my pleasure. I'm Dr. Stephanie D. Barnes, CEO of C-Suite Women's Network, and I am signing out of this 5-part series, Communicating Like a CEO, How to Engage and Not Enrage Your Team. I look forward to seeing you in your C-Suite.